This is not a video about what happens after depression. It's about what happens inside of it when everything starts to collapse and the authentic self starts to finally take over. And most people think that depression is the end, but in reality, in fact, that's something completely wrong. The truth is that depression is the moment where your inner world stops supporting a life that's not true, that's not yours. So, therefore, depression is not a malfunction, it is a transition, it's a rewiring. And today we're talking about the old and the new pathway and how the switch is going to happen and how your life starts to change when you're on the way to getting out of depression. Or in other words, we're talking about the death of an identity that was never really yours. But how is life before depression? Life usually before depression is built on a lie we all have been trained to believe. So you are coming to this world and then you're getting a name, you're getting a label, you are part of a circle, you're part of a culture, part of a country, you get a nationality, like you're getting different kind of things. And then you believe it's you and you're fighting for something that you think is you, but in fact, it's not your authentic self, because your authentic self is not something that others can do or give to you. It's something that you are by nature. And that's exactly why it's a lie what or who you are today or who you believe you are today. It's not really you. And with that type of programming, you're getting the idea or ideas like if you do enough, if you achieve enough, if you're collecting enough, then you are finally going to be happy. So you're getting those programs that make you think that if something happens, then there's something that changes. So you are living by if this, then that. And if you see life like that, then you realize that society worships control. Society worships achievement, worships validation. It's a system where everybody projects from the past into the future, where we are constantly kind of managing fear and we are never actually living. We chase what others call success. We fight for attention, we fight for status, for safety. We perform all the time instead of feeling. We work to maintain a version of ourselves that deep down we know it's not real. We know it's the mask. You know it's the mask. You just know, you can feel it. Even though you might have ignored it your whole life or you have said it's different, deep down you just know. It's a knowing that you have. And with that concept there comes an irony, and the irony is even if you win in the game, you lose. So there's really no winning. And most people, they have these big dreams, they have these big goals, and then they think, when I achieve that, if I achieve that, then my life is changing in a certain way. Most people never achieve those goals, right? Most people never get what they're dreaming of. And the ones who get there, they realize, wait a minute, something is off. It's not how it has been said. Things are not like I don't feel that way like I thought I'm going to feel. And I talked about this concept in my first video. If you check it out on my YouTube channel, you can see my story, because that's what I also went through. And usually when you're having these big goals and you're grinding yourself through, you will experience anxiety. You know, you cannot turn the switch off at night. You come home, you stop working, but you're always working, you're always there. So you're getting into the direction of burnout. You're feeling the emptiness at night. It just comes, you know, especially when you're alone, you just feel something is off. It's important to know that emptiness are not errors. Emptiness are signals. They show us that the world, the old world, the world of victimhood, the world of comparison, the world of material identity is actually sick. It is a collective disease. And what is actually the collective disease? The collective disease is the theme of life that is kind of based on survival, that is kind of based of being a victim and being constantly in a war with others, but also at the end of the day, in a war with ourselves. And now comes the interesting part, because the interesting part is that depression arrives when your soul says that it's enough. So you're going down deep into that hole, you're going down the stairs, you're experiencing this theme of life where you need to grind and hustle, become someone, you're ashamed, you compare yourself, you judge others, you're being judged, all the things, you know, all the struggles that you experience. end at the point when your soul comes and say it's over. And that is actually then depression. That's the moment when your soul refuses to feed the sickness any longer. And depression, when it's hitting you, feels like the lights are just going out. You're just out. You're losing motivation, willpower, drive, interest. You're kind of losing everything. So everything that used to drive you just stops. The motivation goes away. The meaning goes away. Even the rush that you maybe had is just gone. And your mind doesn't understand why. It's because the energy that has used to sustain the false self has withdrawn. It's somewhere else. It's not here anymore. That is what depression really means. It's kind of a release to be pressed out of the old identity so the new one can emerge. And the hard part about it is that you can't go back. So once you experience the signals, it's time. It's time to go forward. It's time to change. There's no way back. The tough thing or the hard thing about it is that you also cannot see forward. It's like you're suspended between different worlds. When you ask your mind what's going on, what's happening to you, what's wrong with you, your mind is telling you that it's a failure, that you are a failure, that something is wrong. Your higher self, on the other side, calls it transformation and that it's time for transformation. And this is the moment where the true work actually begins. It's the moment when you stop trying to fix depression and start to listen to it, because then you start to realize depression is not the darkness. It's the dimming of everything that was false. So the false is turning off. And what's being then born is, guess what? It's truth. The old mind will resist. It will try to regain control. It basically tries to manipulate yourself to stay there, to anchor yourself in the old, in the false, in that what is not true. And therefore it will stop you from moving into the new path. Your old self doesn't want to follow the new path because it will say things like, no, you cannot follow your excitement. You cannot do the things that you like. You have to do it this way. You have to be responsible. It's so dangerous to do it that way, how you would like to do things. And once you think about it, once you think about changing your life in a completely different way, you will realize that your mind is going to tell you stories of failure, of danger, of loss, because it's just about fear. So your mind is based on fear, and fear is kind of all it knows. And if you think about it, then you realize that the fear where it's coming from is from that concept of the saber-toothed tiger, where your mind needs to tell you stuff so you don't do stupid things, so you survive. And that's a concept that is still ongoing nowadays. And that's why so many people are never going to be successful, because they're not going out of the comfort zone into the learning zone, because the learning zone is the fear zone, and they're still connecting it to the tiger instead of seeing that it was just a game for the ego, for the body, for the vessel here, for the physical vessel to survive and continue to be alive. Which at the end, by the way, is just a being, it's just a thing about aliveness and not about the quality of life at the end, because that's not what the mind cares about. And a difficult way now is to understand that the new pathway that's waiting for you in and after depression does not operate on fear. It operates on resonance. It operates on authenticity. And the first step out is kind of pretty simple, but if you consider fear, of course, it's not easy. I mean, think about it. How do you live life usually? Usually, if you think about the concept of be, do, have, your main focus in life is on having things, right? You want to achieve things, you want to become someone, you want to go somewhere. It's always about the result, and people are trying then to reach the result by finding motivation to keep going. They try to reach the result by using discipline. It's a finite source, and they're using it for something that is ongoing, which doesn't make sense, because imagine you're using something that's ending, it's ending at one point, for something that should not end. So of course people crash, no matter if it's business or if it's in the health journey, losing weight or gaining muscles, going to the gym or whatever they want. They stop at one point because they are acting from having something. So they're doing something using different kind of motivators to achieving the things. And it doesn't matter how bad the path actually is. It doesn't matter how fucked up things are. People are just doing the things. And then they maybe achieve their goal and they realize, oh, wait, it's not what I thought it is. Because usually the reason why we want to achieve something is because we want to feel in a certain way. Everything is about emotions, right? But then on the path, they're losing certain abilities and internal resources, so they cannot even feel anymore. So you achieve something and you realize it's not how you thought it was. It was just an image. It was a fantasy. That's all it was. So you think it's like that, but it turns out it's different. And if you understand, then this way of life just doesn't make sense because you're losing. You can only lose. You're losing during the path, and you're losing even when you achieve the things that you wanted to achieve, because you realize it's not how it was. So how can you win here? How does this make sense? And it doesn't. And in the old way, what's also interesting is that people need to give you permission to become someone, to live as someone. So you are going to university and getting your titles, or you're going to some other school, some other mentoring or some program, and then you get a certificate for something so you can become and be someone. But then again, you first need to wait, and then you can do or act or live in a certain way. How does this make sense? And what depression actually does is it turns the pathway around. You first start to become it, and then you live as if. And then it's not even about the result anymore, because the result is in the moment, always there, in the present moment. The result basically is the present. The present is the result. So the results, the outcomes at the end, the physical representation, if you achieve a certain thing, doesn't even matter, because you don't do it for that. You're doing it out of joy on your current path, and not to wait for something, and if this happens, then something else comes in. And if you see life this way, you can achieve your goals so much easier, because now you become someone or something, and then you can do the things that you would do as this person with these results automatically and naturally. So basically, if you want to become an athlete, or if you want to become fit, usually people get a training plan, get a nutrition plan, they're counting calories, they're checking their macros and doing stuff like that. But this means that they are who they are and they add something to them. So it's not them. So it requires discipline and motivation. And that's why people fall off at one point. That's why we see so many people, they were ripped in their 20s and their 30s and are getting fat in their 40s and 50s. That's because they have never been really that person. It was always just an add-on from the outside. And it's the same for entrepreneurship, for example. So you do things that you don't like. Why? Because you want the money. How does this make sense? And most people don't even get the money. So you're just wasting kind of everything. You're just miserable. But if you become the entrepreneur, then you love the way, and you love even the first steps, because you know, even the concept of building a business plan, for example, is something that you're never going to experience maybe ever again in this project. So you just enjoy it. You are not like anxious of getting fast to your results and making your first sales and stuff like that. You're just enjoying the first things, and you think, oh wow, that's like amazing. Not just the first million, but even the part where you don't have any income, where there's no cash flow, where it's about concepts and trying and thinking and creating the hypothesis and then trying, putting it out, getting feedback and failing and adapting, adjusting your things. So in this new way, basically, you give yourself the permission, which means that you become someone else. You do the things naturally that this someone with a certain kind of results would do, and then the results are just a side effect. But it's not the main part anymore of your life, which is what you do before depression, because that's why you're pressed into a character that believes those things because it's programmed in these ways. And that's why you're not authentic. And that's why doing things for a certain goal only is not what your authentic self would do. But how do you start that? I mean, this sounds easy, right? Become someone first and then do the things easily. But where does it even start? Especially if you experience depression, if it's hard, if it's difficult, if you have negative emotions, if you don't have motivation or energy, what do you do? And usually what you do is you start following the tiniest spark of excitement, even if it makes no sense. Because before depression, what you usually do is you get an excitement, you get an idea, you think it through, and you think it through until it makes no sense to follow it anymore. Because you think, oh no, this is not what makes me money. This is not what what people care about, and they look up to me. This is not what I want to achieve. And this is the problem before. And if you want to get out of depression, which means you need to get to the new pathway, you need to start following those excitements, even though they make no sense, and even if you don't understand it yet. So it's important to understand that actually the spark, the one that you feel that comes in a sudden moment, is your compass. And in the state of depression, in that dark hole, what's characteristic for it is that those sparks come up just randomly. You get these thoughts, you get these ideas, you get these pictures or images. But then what happens is you think it through and you think, no, I don't do it, makes no sense, you throw it away. And that's the mistake. That's why you're stuck there usually forever if you are not changing your behavior at this level. So it's about following the spark. The spark is your compass. It's the whisper of your authentic self telling you that this is the way. And every time you follow it, even for just a few seconds, for example, just a few seconds, you're doing what excites you for a few seconds, you start to shift the chemistry in your brain. So with it, you release the old control of the programs and you begin to remember what it means to be alive. Because those sparks, this new path is a path of aliveness. And you maybe heard it already. Most people are dying in their 20s and are just waiting to be buried in their 60s or 70s. And if you start following these sparks, even if they don't make sense, you're basically getting into an algorithm of life, into the algorithm of your authentic self, which then brings you to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. So it's important to understand that it's not about the thing itself. It's not that the thing will be the thing that will give you the money, give you everything you need. But the thing is just a way, a next step to where you are meant to go, what you are meant to be here for. You will discover it at the end. Things may not make sense. You start topic A, you start topic B, you start C, and somehow they're not even connected. And at one point later, maybe it takes years, depends on you, on your path, on how you're in it, how you committed to get through it, you will see that things are coming together. So all of the points that make no sense suddenly create like a picture, like a puzzle that is just completed, and you can see now. It's like you're opening your eyes and you see, oh wow, that's what I'm here for. These are my gifts. These are my talents. This is what makes sense to me. This is what feels real and authentic to me. So you build your own individual world, cut it off from those old programs and narratives that had been set into your mind. And if you follow with these small steps, with those small, tiny excitements, you will realize that this is the moment where you begin to notice small changes. You will care a little less about what others think. You start to sense peace in moments that usually used to trigger anxiety, fear of the future. You realize that depression was never about darkness. It was just about alignment. You're not escaping pain. You're integrating it. You're learning to trust life again without needing to control it, without the addiction of control. And control, if you think about it, was always just a tool of the victim. Trust is the power to master. And when you stop trying to manage every outcome, you will realize that the present moment opens up. You realize that life doesn't need your control. What it really needs is your participation. And the more you participate in life, the more you are going to receive. And you probably heard it, right? You don't get what you want, you get more of what you are. And that's why it's so important to switch it from having to being, and the doing in the middle. What you do and how you do things will be completely differently expressed. So depression teaches you to slow down enough to hear the truth. And once you hear it, you cannot unhear it anymore. That's why this journey, once you're committing to it, there's no way back. There's no way out. You begin to live from being and not from having anymore. You will act from inspiration, not obligation. You stop chasing a future version of yourself. Why? Because you are already the one, the version that you were always looking for. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to achieve. You are already there. You are already accomplished. And this is the point where discipline transforms into devotion, where motivation becomes movement, and where survival gives way to creation. And just ask yourself this question. If I had unlimited time, energy, and money in my life, what would I create? What would I do? And usually people who are before or during inside of depression without knowing what depression is will answer you more or less the same. Most people will tell you, oh, I would like to travel. Travel is my thing. Travel is just what I do. That's what everybody says because nobody knows what they're here for. They don't have their purpose. They don't know their talents, their gifts. They don't think they are special. But the truth is they are. And if you cannot answer this question other than I would travel, then it's an indication. Then you can see that you are before in that stage currently. And you will see that once you are following the sparks, following the steps, your answer will change. Your answer will be something more individual. And then you will realize that your answer is actually going to be your next chapter. That's kind of the master emerging. So to close this video today, keep in mind that depression is not the end of the road. It's actually a turning point. It's an invitation to stop being the produce of the world and become the creator of it. And every great transformation begins in collapse. And the fact that you are here inside of this collapse means that life has already chosen you for something greater. Just follow what excites you. Let the old identity fall away. You don't need to understand it. You only need to trust it. Because what's waiting on the other side of depression is not the old that you healed. It's the real you finally revealed.